Good evening, everyone. You are here with Marvio Cooks and
Orion Peterson.
from the Party for Progress. And today's Progress podcast is going to be awesome. All right. Today we're going to be talking about long lease land and cybersecurity. But before we continue, we're going to do what we usually do. Is give you a nice coffee fact. And today's coffee fact is very simple. Coffee is an appetite inhibitor. So you wake up in the morning and you drink coffee, you might realize that you're not as hungry as you usually would be if you don't. So there you go. There's a coffee pack for you.
So you don't drink coffee at all
No, I do not.
because you're always hungry.
I'm always hungry. I'm not going to stop something to make me not hungry. Nah. All right. So recently we realized that there was a headline, an article that came out that made some people turn their heads and ask, what were we actually doing? Or like our party leader likes to say, what's the actual plan, bro? We realized that the notaries are going to be stopping, or actually have stopped signing for a long lease land.
Yeah, according to the ombudsman, the ombudsman came to Parliament, I believe it was 2 weeks ago, and she gave us basically a summary on her annual report for the year 2022. And in it was something very interesting. She mentioned that the notaries have officially stopped signing deeds, then I would presume, that pertain to long lease land. This is very alarming to say the least. And it's actually something that we've been talking about for a while. I think it's actually part of the motion of disapproval that we passed. I think it was back in 2021, where one of the points that we had in the motion was for the Minister of Romy to bring a policy that actually pertains to how you give off long lease land and its transparency and the process. He was given until the 1st of December of that year to do so. As we all know, that hasn't been done. So right now, we are now in a pickle where the notaries have now reacted to the fact that this policy not being issued is now going to become a legal issue for them if they decide to proceed with signing deeds, etc. And it's something that we have to look at, and I think the ombudsman even asked Parliament's attention on this. I don't know if going to the notaries would help because at some point the notaries also have to do what's legally feasible for them. And if they don't have any sense of security, and according to the DDoM arrest that was issued back in 2021, that right now has them like in a corner. Because basically what was mentioned in the DDoM arrest was that governments cannot give off long lease land without having a transparent and clear process as to how that is done. Why? Because government has to give everybody that is interested in land a fair chance. The principles of equality come into play. And this is actually what we've been saying since the beginning of this term
Yeah.
up to
Since
now.
2019, really.
Yes,
We've been talking about
since I was in domain affairs, actually. But the priority for none of the ministers has been to create said policy. No, it has been to give off land. I believe that the current minister, within 6 months, gave land to his own brother. And
That
these
doesn't.
are the type of things that the arrest would actually want to avoid.
Yeah.
So right now we've reached an impasse where the notaries have said if the minister does not on paper put specifically that the conditions of the DRAM arrest were followed in every single decree,
Agree.
if that does not happen, then they will not sign. So now you have people who would want to sell their house that is, on top of long lease land, and a notary cannot do that.
Amen. So there's no transfers of anything happening.
That's what we have, come to understand. So I think it's time for Rome to sound the alarm on that one.
But so I guess one of the questions is, I have persons that ask me, what does this mean for like the local person, the person that was maybe on a list trying to get long lease land?
Yeah.
We know that it's usually historically been used as a political tool to try and get persons land one way or another. We all hear the talks on the road. But what does this mean for a person that might be in that situation right now? I have long lease land, or I have a building on long lease land. I was in the process of trying to either renew my long lease, or I was trying to get it transferred. What does that mean for me now, and what does it cost for me?
Well, that's actually a good question because if you have a piece of long lease land, regardless of what you want to do with it, whether you want to sell it or you want to transfer it in somebody else's name, or you want to split it or whatever, or you want to change the purpose, all of that would have to be strengthened by going to the notary and making a deed out of it, because you have to get your notarial deed. If the notaries decide that at this point they do not want to sign or work with government when it comes to long lease anymore, up until the policy is put in place, everybody's going to have an issue. So unless the minister decides to go to the notaries, and for example, that this is what I would have done. The first thing you need to do is go to the notaries and make the distinction between issuing long lease land, new parcels to new persons, and actually existing long lease
So
agreements. Because
renewals.
exactly,
Yeah.
because you cannot stop somebody from transferring what is exactly correct. Then you're going against the whole principle of the law, which is continuation. And that being said, if the notaries are doing this, then the minister needs to understand their concern as well. Because if a notary goes on and works me, as I say, and makes a deed, signs a deed, and it becomes official, and then after the fact, it comes to you come to find out that maybe the process was not done in the right way, etc. The notaries also have a responsibility,
Oh,
and I think actually every notary should be insured for, I think, a minimum of $1 million, for in case
dollars, not
something
guilders.
dollars
Okay.
in case stuff like this happens. But yeah, no. So we these type of situations, there is no fix. It can only be fixed by communication. The minister needs to sound the alarm, understand the urgency, and go to the notaries and try to fix what is currently the issue. Because if the ombudsman can bring this to Parliament, and I'm sure that the minister is aware of it as well.
Oh, wow. Wow. Interesting times. And this is something that PFP really been talking about. It's about representation. It's really about proper representation. We sounded the alarm on this from the beginning of this
This
governmental
term,
term. Yeah,
yeah,
from
no, no,
2019.
for sure.
We
We've
tried.
always said, since my tenure in the civil service as the former acting head of the domain, I was always saying, guys, we have so many outstanding requests. We have people that have been requesting land from the 90s, from the 80s, people that have never
Wow.
gotten an answer. So I'm talking a
Wow.
couple hundred people, maybe even 1,000.
Wow.
And I've said this in Parliament many times, because it is not fair to any of those persons who have requested land since before I was born,
And follow the
to
process.
exactly, and then to watch new ministers come in and within a year give land to their significant others or family members, etc. Because that's what the law tries to avoid. Ministers in the past have always misinterpreted the long lease ordinance. They think that because you have what we call the discretionary bevoegdheid, that you're actually supposed to just do it and nobody can tell you anything. No, het privaatrechtelijk handelen, which is, erfpacht, etc. All of that is governed by the principles of good governance.
Maybe
Period.
before you said privaat echtelijk handelen, what does that stand for? Because not everybody here has got their Netherlands up to. So what is that
So,
exactly?
as a minister, your ability, your authority is governed by certain parts of the law. When it comes to the minister of Rome, you have certain departments. You have the Department of Permits, you have the Department of new projects, of infrastructure, of domain affairs, and of inspection. When you look at the process of a building permit, the building permit that the minister issues to somebody to build something, that comes from what we call government law bestuursrecht. So that is an executive decision. So in that situation, the parties of that agreement are government towards a citizen.
Okay.
That's officially how you look at it. But when it comes to long lease, the long lease is the only department within VROMI that is actually private law. So that's privaatrecht. So erfpacht by itself, long lease issuance by itself, is not a governmental executive decision. It's actually something that if you have land in private ownership, you can also issue your land to me in long lease.
Oh.
So that's the relationship that government then has when it comes to long lease. It's not government towards a citizen. No, it's government, a private entity that has this land in ownership, is giving this piece of land, issuing this piece of land in long lease to another person. And because you're government, we have the formalities that you would have to deed it, etc. Because government has so much land to give off, so you would have to know what belongs to who. But erfpacht, long lease issuance, it comes from the civil, the wetboek, the civil code. So that's basically where you would have to understand that, okay, this is civil law. That means that a long leash issuance is something that we call a privaatrechtelijk handel.
Yeah.
So that's the relationship that you would get with government towards a citizen. You would have to go to the civil judge. Okay, and then in plaats van going to the bestuursrechter, for example.
Okay. Now you see, I find it very interesting, especially when this article came out, because I remember the amount of times that we as a party brought up the importance of addressing this issue and having the proper policies in place. I know you for sure have been one of them, really representing us about that. As a PFP government, what would you say would be in one of the things from since the moment that PFP brought that motion of disapproval to get, because this was one of the things that was listed in that motion, what would have been the more smarter, the more representative move for a minister to do?
Well, I think that the minister mismanaged the whole situation. He did not prioritize making said policy, because to tell a minister, to instruct a minister to create the policy is nice, but that's also a lot of work. You know, you would have to go to the stakeholders. You would have to look at what's reasonable. You would have to understand that, for example, some persons that requested land in the 80s or the 90s might not even be on the island anymore. So you would have to go through that rigorous process of putting it in its box. But what the minister did is basically create a short policy and try to use that as a sort of a guidelines. No, you have to,
so like a temporary kind of
exactly
thing?
No, but you have to actually create policy, publish it, give the public a chance to maybe object or whatever, go through that process, because it has to be transparent. It has always been about the principles of equality and the principles of good governance. So transparency is number one, but number two, it has to be fair. So unless you create a system that is fair, then you can jump high and jump low. But if the judge tells you this is not fair, then you're back to the drawing board. But the judge is not going to do it for you. You have to create it. You have to have the incentive to actually be proactive and think for yourself as a minister what is reasonable and what not. But if you don't want to do that, then you're not going to get anywhere.
Yeah, and that's why we keep talking about proper representation. We keep talking about representation in parliament and in government. We keep talking about paying attention to the things that are necessary. And a long time ago, I had the thing where I keep telling people a stitch in time. We had our old people used to tell us all the time, our elders, a stitch in time saves nine. The stitch in time was the moment before the motion of disapproval. And then the second stitch in time, which was, most people don't get that, was the motion of disapproval itself and the moments after that. As we can see, nothing was done. And that's why we keep asking, when are we going to get tired of this kind of behavior? Because look today, now a real situation with real consequences. The public, the persons that are supposed to be getting empowered, are supposed to be getting helped by their government by being able to have a fair process to acquire something that helps build legacy. That's very important for us as St. Martiners. Being able to get land, being able to have something that we own now is put in jeopardy, is put on a halt because of the persons that were supposed to take care and represent the people decided, no, we're going to take some shortcuts. We're going to do what we want.
And I think, this minister has arguably done it worse than most. But if you go back to where it all came from, I have colleagues in parliament right now who were also ministers who have done the exact same thing. Issued land to certain persons, whether it's relatives to them or whatever, for whatever reason, but without a process, without had beleid. You need to police your own executive authority. That is what the law expects you to do as a minister. The law doesn't expect you to come in and feel that you're high and mighty just because the law gives you that ability. You're still governed by good governance, and I think that has failed with every minister of Romi the last couple of years, with the exception of Minister Gitterson, and that is my personal opinion on it, and that's every minister. So that's my 2 cents on that one.
Right, and here we go. Once again, we have an example of what could have been done, what should have been done. Luckily, PFP was there sounding the alarm. Unluckily, we don't have the amount of representation that we need in our parliament in order to actually exact the changes that we're talking about. But that's why we're here. That's why we're continuing the work to be done. That's why it's important for the people to know the facts and understand that this is what representation could look like if you choose a different direction come January 11th in 2024. And, another part of representation is being able to actually protect your citizens from threats that are out there. both physically and digitally. And we already know every time we get a bill, or if you get a bill at the end of the month from our beautiful utilities company, we realize the importance of actually paying attention to cybersecurity. And recently, I just came from a conference in St. Bart's, where the French territories are actually getting together, and they've got an association of countries together to talk about cybersecurity, to talk about the economic and social consequences of cyber attacks, and also to talk about the threats that are out there and what each territory has done in order to protect themselves.
Should
Luckily,
have sent GB.
luckily, yeah, I don't think they would have learned anything. Luckily, I was able to join MP De Weaver as she was invited to go to this, and
Oh yeah, those couple weeks back.
yeah, just a
Yeah.
couple of weeks back, actually, just 2 weeks back, yeah. And we were able to go over, and I was brought over as an expert, as someone to give reference to the terminology and stuff that's there. We were able to really have a good conversation with our French counterparts. And I realized there the importance of actually having proper representation, not only in parliament, not only in government, but in our government-owned companies,
Yeah.
in the places that actually hold the country's information, and they're supposed to store it and protect it. At that conference, well, before we continue, a lot of people talk about cybersecurity and don't actually explain what cybersecurity is. So for those of you that are not sure what cybersecurity is, it's not just like the Matrix and hacking. Hacking isn't, that that crazy. It's cybersecurity, to put it simply, is the practice of protecting your computers, your systems, your servers, your mobile devices, anything that's connected to a network, is the protection of it locally and internationally. So what does that mean? It means that you're defending your network from your system, your phone, from someone else or other entities being able to access it without your permission or your knowledge. And at this conference, we were able to meet with other country leaders, such as the Prefet from Saint Martin and St. Bart's. We were able to meet with some digital transformation specialists from the EU and from the Caribbean region, from Guadeloupe, from Martinique. And one of the things that I really enjoyed about that conference was that everyone there was talking about being able to strengthen their cybersecurity measures through standardization and also communication amongst their regional
Working
partners.
together, yeah.
Because there's something that you have to know, is that if tomorrow, if Anguilla gets hit with a cybersecurity threat, it's just a matter of time before it comes to St. Martin. And actually, we should know that St. Martin is more of a target than anything, because we are looked at as an easy target. What happened at GB should have never happened. What happened at GB was something that was straight up negligence. At that point, we were begging to be hacked. We might as well have opened the door, put some lights on, and said, please, hack us. Come on in and get us. The standards of cybersecurity, any IT professional should know these things. And these are basics. These are making sure that you have security in layers. What does that mean? That you have several layers of security, so that if a breach happens, there's a stopgap. Imagine them as walls that stop something from coming in. We are supposed to make sure that you're updated, not only in your software, but also in your hardware. From the article, I believe they were running a server that was server 2008 or server 2012 in 2020 something. Do you know how many threats have come out since 2012? The security that was there, a 12-year-old could have just gone in there and taken all of our information. So it shows that the professionals that we had there that are supposed to be protecting our information, the government that is in there that's supposed to be having meetings, quarterly meetings with these IT professionals. They're supposed to be asking what's going on. They're supposed to be able to know that everything is running the way it's supposed to be, aren't doing so. But we keep supporting persons and individuals and parties that reward persons for their lack of attention to these areas. At that conference, while we were there, we got invited the following day to go right next door to our neighbors on the north side.
Nice.
And guess what they were doing? They were doing a cybersecurity conference as well, an event, where they were simulating a cyber attack live so that the persons, the decision makers, the ones that are supposed to help protect these things and might not be technically inclined, such as your supervisor, your managers, your board, your supervisory board, and so on, so they can understand what is happening. And one of the main things that came out from that conference was that your main vulnerability is your personnel.
And that's what happened with GB, right?
And that's
That's exactly what happened with GB.
that's exactly what happened with GB. Not only GB, it was the exact same thing that happened with government
as well, yeah.
not once, but twice. Your personnel, training your personnel, making sure that the persons that are working with your information, the persons that are accessing the information, are actually trained up to date. They actually understand what a threat looks like, and that there's actually the tools in place so that they know how to report it. But instead, whoever it was able to just give access to everything. We need to get better about our cybersecurity. And this is why, with the PFP government, one of the things that I am working on and the party is working on and proposing is to create a national cybersecurity division, a division that would actually protect our information, our digital information, with real security standards that understands that we have to have security in layers, that we have to make sure to think about the Internet of Things, because everything is getting a chip in it. You got a toaster these days that you could probably communicate with Wi-Fi and turn it on. Well, guess what? That can be hacked. You love your car so much, guess what? Your car has chips in it, and it can also be hacked. The Internet of Things it's called IoT, is everything that is connected. And today, many things are connected. Could you imagine you're sitting down in your car, somebody just turns on your engine for you?
I'm gonna start walking. Yep.
Yeah, but these are the things that we have to start thinking today. We can't keep being a country that thinks, oh, that's far away. That's for those big countries. No, we got hacked.
We got hacked big time.
Big time. And we were our utility company guys literally had less security than I have at home.
And that's saying a lot. That's saying a lot. But you see, like you said, it's all about preparation. It's all about going through that. But the current government just has other priorities.
Yeah.
And we see that by the actions of the ministers personally. I mean, these conferences, these are the proactive situations that you would expect them to be at, and not
one. They're only not one person. And that's why I'm talking about representation. Not one
we're
person.
too busy suing private citizens for talking out there. So that's
not one. And I was very happy to see that MP De Wever was able to really elaborate on the economic impacts of it and the social impacts of it. And when she shared the information about how we can work together, the response was great. They even invited St. Martin to come to the next one, because like they mentioned there, knowing is half the battle. And knowing what your regional counterparts are going through and how they are preparing for it helps us to put those measures proactively. And that's the issue that we have as digital security, as cybersecurity, is that a lot of the times in a lot of areas in our country, when it comes to government, we put IT in the back burner, and then we only pay attention to it when something goes wrong. I know that in my line of work, I'm a big proponent for making sure that we are proactive. Being proactive in 2015 made sure that where I work was able to continue operating in 2020 during COVID, even though back then, when what I was fighting to get was being told that, oh, we're spending frivolously. Could you imagine?
The threat is unrealistic.
That the threat is unrealistic. And then just 5 years later, guess what? We were still able to have classes. We were still able to make sure that teachers can give their lessons, that students can still learn, because of the proactiveness that came from someone with vision, strategy, and took the action needed to do it. And that's what Party for Progress is about. And this is why we continue to ask you, are you tired yet? Aren't you tired of being misrepresented? Aren't you tired of having to pay the consequences for other person's decisions that aren't being taken with your best interest in mind? So yeah, it's really up to you guys to decide, hey, what do I want to see as a representative in St. Martin? what is it that they should be able to talk about? What is it that they should be able to focus on? Because today we are literally seeing the negligence and the consequences of negligence coming back to bite not just the person that made the wrong decision or chose to be indecisive. We're watching the consequences come right at us and where it matters, to the public, to the pockets, to your livelihood.
Well, that doesn't give me,
Yeah, but there's hope, and the hope is Party for Progress. We're literally here, as you can see. We are a group of persons that understand the issues. We have good representation. And I gotta say, some of the best representation that I have seen in Parliament as opposition in a long, long time. And I say that because a lot of times I get stopped on the road and they're like, "Hey, why didn't PFP do this?" And I'm like, "Because we're there's just 2 votes in there. We're not government."
Yeah, but
I
think that's what I've been getting a lot, as to why PFP didn't execute certain things. But I really like to keep the real with people.
Yeah.
I really like to keep it real with people when it comes to the dynamic of how Parliament works and how decisions are made, etc. And yeah, you have to be realistic with the fact that we are a democracy, and you would need 8 of the 15 persons to have the right mindset, and that the current stage of things, we do not have 8 of the 15 that have the right mindset, and that's just how it is.
Yep. So I think we're getting close to the end of it. We've touched. You got anything else?
Not really. I mean, I just want everybody to start paying attention because it's campaign time, as they say, and just beware of the politics. Beware of people using campaign time as an ammo to emotionally hijack. That's what I've been saying since the start of this term, and I keep saying it again. We have persons out there who are not in it for the right reasons, and we know this. And the public is going to see that for themselves.
Yeah.
I think St. Martin's public is well informed. At least compared to 4 years ago. I've been talking to some people, and people are paying attention. They're really starting to understand. Wait, we've been getting fooled for so long, and these last 4 years, even though government was stable, we are still getting fooled till up to today.
Yeah, because even the stability that they boast about is really because of Party for Progress.
Yeah, they're welcome for that.
Yeah. Because if we would have answered the call and danced the dance, we would have been rolling into a whole nother step election.
Yeah, and I think that's very important to know that we PFP doesn't dance. I mean, we can dance.
We can.
Bachata. Exactly. But no, we don't. We're not part of the show.
No.
And I've said it a lot in Parliament as well, and I think that people are aware that we took it serious. We said that we were going to stay in opposition and learn, and we were not going to stray and help them drop government and switch ministers, etc. Even though the offers came, and we did not. And I'm pretty sure that all of them know that the offers were there. And we have a plan. We have an actual plan, and we're not going to stray or compromise. And I can honestly say that I'm proud of the team. We've been keeping it up. And come postulation day, it's going to be fun.
Yeah, and like I always say, representation really matters. I think we've seen in the past 4 years what proper representation can look like. I know that Party for Progress has candidates that are candidates of quality and that are ready to represent us the way that we're supposed to, the way that we deserve, with empathy and equity in mind for the people of St. Martin. And that's what leaders are supposed to do. Once again, something that our elders always told us: a stitch in time saves 9. And coming January 11th, we're going to have another chance to put another stitch and try and save some time over here on St. Martin and save the future of St. Martin. And I really implore our constituents, all of our voters, like Rayon said, like MP said, it's time to open your eyes. Many of you are, and many of you are realizing that what has been happening has not been beneficial to you, your families, or your legacies. So come January 11th, PFP is on the ballot, and we are ready to represent you the way that you deserve.
Everybody,
and not just the way that politics has been redefined on St. Martin. Yeah, we're
a team.
We're a team.
We're an actual team, and I think that's going to show.
Yeah. So thank you, guys. Remember, representation matters, and come January 11th, vote PFP.
Choose Progress.
This was Marvio Cooks.
This is Rayon Peterson.
Have a great night.